All right. So the last part of today's lesson is a nice little jumping off point, a little segue away from a whole bunch of vocabulary and into a little bit of vocabulary, but we actually start working with some numbers here and actually start developing some numbers that will lead into statistics. So this is a nice break in it. It becomes something like before when I kind of went back and forth with interval and ratio as the best classification. You will no longer have that problem, okay? I used to hate when that happened to me and I was a kid in class on a test. So with this in mind, I find what we're about to do much more comforting and less stressful. Okay, so notation. We're about to learn some new notations here. Individual measurements or scores obtained for a research participant will be identified by the letter X, or if there's two of them, Y, and so on and so forth. The number of scores in a data set will be N. So N is always short for the number of scores, N, number of scores. And X is whatever this thing is that we're measuring, this score obtained. And then here's the biggie. This stuff, you knew the first two bullet points before this, but this third bullet point's important. When you sum it all up, that means you're going to add it. There's a common notation in statistics, and it has its own notation. It's the Greek letter sigma, and that's the kind of fancy looking E there that it goes. The Greeks actually have a letter epsilon that pairs up with E. This is the letter sigma, and sigma is S, and it has to do with sum. So we use the sigma to sum or add things up. That's why it is used to stand for the sum of. For example, sigma x identifies the sum of the scores, x being all the scores. So sigma x means add up all those scores. Show you what I mean. Oh, before I show you what I mean, let's talk about the order of operations. It's exactly what you've been doing your whole life. PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add or subtract. But the thing is that a sigma, a summation symbol, is also adding, and we're going to put that between MD and AS in PEMDAS. So it's parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, summation, and then add and subtract. So between multiplying and dividing, we stick in summation. Okay, so now it says for the following set of scores, find the value for each expression. And I'm going to take you through these four, and then on the next page, you're going to have some more to do that are similar to these, okay? So the first one says the sum of x's. That's what this notation here means. Sigma x means add up all the x's. Well, what are the x's? The x's are labeled right over here. These are the individual data that we're going to add up, okay? So the sum of the x's means, sum means add, sigma x, 2 plus 5 plus 0 plus 4. In other words, we go right over here, we look at these numbers, and we add them. 2 plus 5 plus 0 plus 4, that adds up to 11. What do you think the sum of x squareds means? Well, by the order of operations, we have to square the x's first. So we're going to square the x's, and then we're going to add them. So 2 squared is 4, 5 squared is 25, 0 squared is 0, 4 squared is 16. Then the summation, sigma, says add them all up. 4 and 25 make 29, and 0 make 29, and 16 makes 45. What do you think the sum of x plus 1 means? Well, that means take whatever the x value is, add 1 to it, so 2 would become 3, 5 would become 6, and then add them all up. So the sum of the x plus 1s is 2 becomes 3, right? 5 becomes 6, 0 becomes 1, and 4 becomes 5. And then I add them up. 3 and 6 is 9, and 1 is 10, and 5 makes 15. So the sigma symbol always means that at the end, or before, pretty much at the end, you're going to add up all of these values. And what's to the right of the sigma symbol tells you, is it x, or you're going to square the x, you're going to add 1 to the x, or in the case of the letter D, are you going to add 1 to the x and then square it? So if you notice, the x plus 1 values were right here, 3, 6, 1, 5. This says to square the x plus 1 values. So notice there are parentheses here, which made me know that, hey, I have to do the values that are x plus 1. Make sure I add that one first. And then square each of them. So if I square each of them, what's 3 squared? 9. 6 squared? 36. 1 squared? 1. 5 squared? 25. If I add all of those up, 9, 36, 1, that's 46. 25 is 66, 71. They always add up to 71. So here is a chance for you to do your key concept question with these 5 of them. Okay? You do that. Oh, and I should mention, if the last page about the summation symbols bothered you, watch it again. Just go back, scroll the tape a little bit, watch it again, and then apply your knowledge to here, A through E, with these summation symbols. It's a stop and start moment. You do that. I'll give you the correct answers in a minute. Okay, the sum of the x's. Remember, the scores are the x's. So the scores are 6, 2, 4, and 2. The sum of the x's means add up those scores. So that's 6 plus 2 plus 4 plus 2, which is 14. Now, what does B say? B says the sum of the x's squared. So I've got to square order of operations here. I don't find the sum, then square it. I square them, then find the sum. So 6 squared is 36, 2 squared is 4, 4 squared is 16, 2 squared is 4. So 6 became 36, 2 becomes 4. When you square each of them, 4, 16, and so on. Add them all up, I get 60. Now notice the difference between letter B and letter C. Letter C says, first add them all up and then square them. But when I added them all up, I came up with 14. Remember, that was the answer to part A. Here it is. So this is saying, take the answer to part A, add up all the x's, and then square them. When I do that, I come up with 14 squared, which is 196. Similar ideas on letters D and E. Perhaps you want to pause and correct your answer to E if you got C wrong. If not, just keep right on playing the video. Okay, so for the x minus 2's, that would be, let's see here. 6 minus 2 is 4, 2 minus 2 is 0, 4 minus 2 is 2, and 2 minus 2 is 0. I add them up and I get 6. And then it says the sum of x minus 2 squared. So I've got to square each of these things. Notice, in letter C, you had parentheses around it, so that says first you add them, then you square it. In letter E, there are no parentheses. So this says first you square it, then you add it. So that answer is a bad answer. So let me go back and correct that. I don't know how I got so distracted with that. But this should be the sum of the x minus 2 squared. So 4 squared is 16, 0 squared is 0, 2 squared is 4, and 0 squared is 0. And if I add them all up, I get 20. So that is the correct answer that I was looking for. Okay? So your final summation slide of says right here. Okay, and then here's the correct values in case you are looking to take a screenshot of this. Okay? All right. Any questions? Anything else? Just check out the work. Do a great job, and I will see you when the next class rolls around.